The elevator doors opened on the 40th floor, and Yvonne Mitchell stepped into a world where cameras weren't welcome. Seoul's most powerful mafia boss stood in the penthouse shadows, watching her with eyes that promised both danger and salvation. She'd come to photograph his art collection. He'd come to claim her soul. When their hands touched over a forgotten lens cap, something impossible ignited. A connection that would either destroy them both or remake their worlds entirely. 3 days later, when enemies stormed his empire, he'd have to choose his throne or the curvy photographer who made him feel human again. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV, my dearest friends. I wish you a prosperous new year in advance. I want to say a very big thank you for your unwavering support. Thank you so much. I don't take it for granted. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's love story. The camera clicked 3 times before Yvonne Mitchell noticed the tension bleeding through the gallery walls. She'd been hired to photograph Seoul's elite charity auction, not to witness whatever dangerous game unfolded between the men in expensive suits clustered near the east exit. Her assignment was simple: capture wealth, philanthropy, beautiful faces. Stay invisible. She adjusted her lens, focusing on a bronze sculpture when she felt it. That primitive awareness of being watched by a predator. Yvonne turned slowly. A man stood 30 feet away, flanked by 4 others who moved like trained killers. He was tall for a Korean man, perhaps 6'1", with sharp features that seemed carved from marble and eyes so dark they swallowed light. His tailored black suit probably cost more than her annual salary. Power radiated from him like heat from asphalt in summer. Their gazes locked. The world narrowed to that single point of connection. Something flickered across his face: surprise, recognition, hunger, before his expression returned to beautiful, terrifying neutrality. He dismissed his men with a subtle gesture, never breaking eye contact with her. Yvonne's pulse hammered. She'd photographed dangerous men before, but this was different. This man looked at her like he was memorizing her bone structure, cataloging every curve of her body beneath the simple black dress she wore for professional invisibility. He moved toward her with predatory grace. "You're the photographer," he said. His English was perfect, accented and smooth as aged whiskey. "Yvonne Mitchell, American, 28. You've been in Seoul for 6 months." Her stomach dropped. "How do you? I know everyone who enters my city." His gaze traveled down her body slowly, deliberately, before returning to her face. "But I didn't know you'd be so compelling." The way he said that last word made her skin flush hot. "Your city," she managed, lifting her camera defensively between them like a shield. "Seoul belongs to those who control it." He stepped closer, invading her space with the confidence of a man who'd never been refused anything. "I'm Dante Park, and you've been photographing things you shouldn't." Fear spiked through her attraction. Yvonne glanced at her camera's display screen, reviewing her shots from the evening. Sculptures, paintings, wealthy donors and elegant conversation. Nothing controversial. "I'm documenting the auction," she said carefully. "Standard corporate photography." Standard. His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. More like a wolf baring teeth. "You captured Senator Kim's transaction with the Russian delegate. That sculpture they both touched. It contained more than bronze." Her breath caught. She thought it was just an awkward moment between 2 men admiring art. "I'll delete it," she offered quickly. "No." Dante reached out, his fingers brushing her hand where it gripped the camera. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm. "You'll give me the memory card. And then, you'll have dinner with me." "That's not... I don't..." Yvonne stammered, hating how her body responded to his proximity. She was a professional. She didn't get flustered by attractive men, no matter how dangerous. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. He produced a business card from his jacket, pressing it into her palm. His thumb stroked across her wrist once, deliberate and possessive. "Don't make me ask twice, Yvonne." Before she could respond, he walked away, his security detail materializing around him like shadows. She watched him disappear through the crowd, her hand still burning from his touch. The card was matte black with silver lettering, no title, just a name, phone number, and an address in Gangnam. Later that night, alone in her small apartment in Itaewon, Yvonne researched Dante Park until her eyes burned. What she found made her blood run cold. He wasn't just wealthy. He controlled half of Seoul's underground empire. Real estate, nightclubs, shipping, companies, all legitimate on the surface, but connected to a vast criminal network. He'd inherited the organization from his father at 25 and had spent the last 8 years consolidating power with ruthless efficiency. There were no photos of him smiling, no scandals, no public relationships. He was called the Silent King because his enemies simply disappeared without drama or explanation. And he wanted to have dinner with her. Yvonne should have been terrified, should have deleted those photos, returned the memory card, and fled Seoul on the next flight to New York. Instead, she found herself staring at the business card, remembering the heat in his eyes when he'd looked at her. The next morning, her phone rang at 7. Unknown number. "Miss Mitchell," Dante's voice poured through the speaker like dark silk. "A car will collect you at 7:30 tonight. Wear something beautiful, though I suspect you'd be devastating in anything." "I haven't." "Agreed." "Yes, you have." She could hear the smile in his voice now. "You've been thinking about me since the moment I touched you. Don't lie to yourself, Yvonne. It's beneath you." The call ended before she could argue. By 7 o'clock that evening, Yvonne stood in front of her closet, cursing herself for the nervous excitement thrumming through her veins. She settled on a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves without being overtly sexual. Professional enough to maintain dignity. Feminine enough to satisfy whatever dress code a Mafia boss's restaurant required. The car arrived precisely at 7:30, a sleek black Mercedes with a driver who opened her door without speaking. The drive took them through glittering Gangnam streets to a building that looked like a modern art installation, all glass and steel and impossible angles. They bypassed the main entrance, pulling into a private garage. An elevator required a key card. They ascended to the 40th floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's nightscape, minimalist furniture in black and cream, and everywhere, covering nearly every wall, art. Museum-quality pieces that should have been behind velvet ropes and security glass. You appreciate beauty. Yvonne spun. Dante emerged from what appeared to be a kitchen, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He'd changed from his suit into black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with a tattoo she couldn't quite make out. "Is this your home?" she asked. "One of them." He offered her a glass. "I thought you'd prefer privacy for our conversation." Warning bells clanged in her head. "You said dinner. This looks like dinner." He gestured to a dining table set for 2 near the windows. "I cooked. Nothing elaborate. I'm told I have limited domestic skills, but it's edible." The vulnerability in that admission surprised her. This man who commanded criminal empires was nervous about his cooking? "You don't flirt with women like me," Yvonne said softly, accepting the wine. His eyebrows rose. "Like you?" "Normal. Working class. Curvy." She gestured at herself with her free hand. "I've seen the women who orbit men like you. Models. Actresses. I'm just a photographer." Something dark and possessive flashed across Dante's face. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, backing her against the window. The glass was cold against her shoulders. His body radiated heat inches from hers. Let me be very clear. His voice dropped to a register that vibrated through her chest. I've never looked at another woman the way I look at you. Those models and actresses, they're decorations. Pretty, empty things. You. His hand rose to cup her jaw, thumb brushing her full lower lip. You're real. Brilliant. Those curves you diminish, they make me want to worship every inch of your body until you understand your own power. Yvonne's breath shortened. You don't know me. Not yet. His gaze dropped to her mouth. But I will. Every secret, every fear, every fantasy you've never told anyone. He leaned closer, his lips a breath from hers. And then, I'll own you completely. You can't own a person, she whispered, even as her body betrayed her, swaying toward him. No. He pulled back slightly, that almost smile returning. But I can earn the privilege of protecting you, providing for you, ensuring no one ever hurts you or makes you feel less than the goddess you are. He stepped away then, breaking the spell, and gestured toward the dinner table. The meal was surprisingly good. Korean beef, seasoned vegetables, rice prepared with more care than she'd expected. They ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Dante watched her with an intensity that should have been creepy but instead felt like being seen for the first time in her life. Why photography? He asked finally. Control, Yvonne answered honestly. The wine had loosened her tongue. I can frame the world exactly how I want it, make beautiful things permanent. Stop time. You can't stop time. No, but I can capture moments that matter before they disappear. She met his gaze. Why crime? His laugh was sharp and humorless. Inheritance, legacy. My father built an empire. I was 12 when I learned what that really meant. By 15, I'd killed my first man, a rival who thought murdering my mother would weaken my father's position. Horror and sympathy warred in Yvonne's chest. I'm sorry. Don't be. Dante's expression went cold. He begged. They all do eventually. But mercy in my world is weakness. Compassion gets you killed. Then why show me any softness? The question hung between them like a thrown knife. Dante stood, moving to the window. Soul glittered below them like scattered diamonds. Because when I saw you in that gallery, something broke open inside me. Or maybe woke up. I've spent 33 years building walls no one could penetrate. Then you turned around, looked at me with those eyes, and every defense I've constructed crumbled. Yvonne joined him at the window. That's not love. That's obsession. Perhaps. He turned to face her, and the raw need in his expression stole her breath. But I've never claimed to be a good man, Yvonne. I'm possessive, jealous. I solve problems with violence. But I protect what's mine with everything I have. I'm not yours. Not yet, he repeated his earlier words. But you will be. The next few days passed in a blur. Dante inserted himself into Yvonne's life with strategic precision. He appeared at the coffee shop where she worked on editing photos, occupying the corner table for hours, while his security detail made the other customers nervous. He sent flowers to her apartment. Not roses, but exotic orchids that probably cost more than her rent. He commissioned her for a private photography session at his penthouse, ostensibly to document his art collection, but really just to keep her close. Yvonne tried to resist, tried to maintain professional distance, but Dante was patient and relentless, learning her preferences, her routines, the small things that made her smile. He noticed when she skipped lunch and had meals delivered. He memorized how she took her coffee. He asked about her family back in California, her dreams beyond photography, the novel she'd been writing in fragments for 3 years. He made her feel seen in ways no one ever had. A week after their first dinner, Yvonne was photographing a corporate event at a Gangnam hotel when she noticed him. Not Dante, a Western man in an expensive suit who'd been watching her for the past 20 minutes. When she packed up her equipment, he approached. "Yvonne Mitchell?" His smile was calculated charm. "I'm Michael Richardson. I've been admiring your work." "Thank you." She kept her tone professional but cool. "I represent several international clients who need talented photographers. Your portfolio is impressive." He stepped closer, invading her space. "Perhaps we could discuss opportunities over drinks." "I'm not interested." "Come on, sweetheart." His hand touched her lower back. "Don't be." The contact never completed. Dante materialized from nowhere, his hand clamping on Michael's wrist with enough force to make the man gasp. The temperature in the lobby seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Remove your hand," Dante said quietly, "or I'll remove it permanently." Michael paled, recognizing him. "Mr. Park, I didn't realize that she's mine." Dante's voice was silken death. "Now you do. Leave Seoul, tonight. If I see you again, you won't see anything ever again." Michael fled. Dante watched him go before turning to Yvonne, and she saw it, the jealous fury he'd barely contained, now fading to concern. "Did he hurt you?" His hands framed her face, tilting it to examine her as though checking for injuries. "No, I'm fine. But Dante—" She pulled back. "You can't just threaten people who talk to me." "Yes, I can." No apology, no shame. "You're mine to protect." "I'm not your property." "No." He caught her hand, pressing it to his chest where his heart hammered beneath expensive fabric. "You're so much more than that. You're the only thing in this world that makes me feel human. And I will burn down anyone who threatens that." The raw honesty in his voice cut through her anger. This man, this dangerous, powerful, ruthless man, was completely undone by her. It was terrifying. It was intoxicating. "Take me home," she whispered. Something dark and hungry flared in his eyes. "My home or yours?" "Yours." The drive to his penthouse was silent, charged with electric tension. Dante held her, hand the entire way, his thumb tracing circles on her palm that made her core tighten with anticipation. In the elevator, he backed her against the wall, his forehead resting against hers. "Tell me to stop," he breathed. "Tell me you don't want this." "I can't." "Then tell me you do. I need to hear it, Yvonne." "I want you." The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. "I want this. I want—" His mouth captured hers before she could finish. The kiss was devastating, possessive and tender simultaneously, claiming her completely while somehow asking permission. She gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, his hands spanning her waist, pulling her curves against the hard planes of his body. The elevator doors opened. Dante lifted her easily, carrying her through the penthouse to a bedroom she'd never seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A massive bed dominated the space. He set her down gently, his hands trembling slightly as they traced the curves of her body. "You're perfect," he whispered reverently. "Every inch of you." What followed was tender and consuming, a collision of need and emotion that left them both breathless and changed. Dante worshipped her body with a reverence that made tears prick her eyes, murmuring in Korean words she didn't understand, but felt in her soul. When they finally came together, it was like two broken pieces becoming whole. Afterward, wrapped in expensive sheets with his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Yvonne felt panic bloom. This was too much, too fast. She barely knew him. This couldn't be real. While Dante slept, she dressed quietly and slipped out. The next morning, Dante woke alone. The panic that seized him was primal and immediate. He called her 15 times, sent 20 messages. Nothing. By noon, he was at her apartment. She wouldn't answer the door. Yvonne, his palm pressed flat against the wood. I know you're afraid. I know this is overwhelming. But don't run from me. Please. Silence. I'm not leaving, he said quietly. I'll stay here as long as it takes. I'll prove I'm not going anywhere. You're not just another conquest. You're everything. 3 hours later, the door opened. Yvonne looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. This can't work, she said. Your world is too dangerous. You're too intense. I can't. Breathe. He cupped her face gently. Just breathe. We'll figure this out together. How? You're a criminal. I'm mine. His voice was firm. You're mine, and I'm yours. Everything else, we'll handle. That evening, his phone rang. The call that would change everything. His second-in-command's voice was tight with urgency. We have a problem. The Kwan family knows about her. They're making moves. Dante's blood ran cold. The Kwan family, his oldest rivals, the one faction still powerful enough to threaten him. And now, they knew about Yvonne. He looked at her, curled on his couch, trusting him completely. Increase security, he ordered. I want eyes on her 24 hours a day. Already done. But boss, they leaked her photos to the press. She's being labeled as your mistress. It's trending online. Dante closed his eyes. He'd tried to keep her separate from his world, but that was impossible. By loving her, he'd painted a target on her back. He had to protect her, even if she hated him for it, even if it meant revealing exactly what kind of monster he really was. The media storm hit within hours. Yvonne's phone exploded with notifications, messages from colleagues, former clients, even her mother in California demanding to know if the rumors were true. Photos of her leaving Dante's building had been captured by telephoto lenses and plastered across every gossip site in Seoul. The headlines were vicious. Mystery woman captures Mafia king's heart. American nobody seduces Seoul's most dangerous bachelor. Dante Park's latest conquest. Who is Yvonne Mitchell? She sat on her apartment floor, scrolling through comments that dissected everything from her body to her credentials to her motives. They called her a gold digger, a social climber, worse things she wouldn't repeat even in her own mind. Her phone rang. Dante. Don't read them, he said immediately. Too late, her voice cracked. They're destroying me. My professional reputation is, I'll fix this. How? Yvonne laughed bitterly. You can't control the internet. You can't make people I can make them afraid to speak your name without respect. His voice hardened to steel. Give me 24 hours. Dante, no. Don't hurt anyone because of me. Silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. I'll handle this my way, he said finally. Pack a bag. My men are outside your building. They'll bring you somewhere safe. I'm not hiding. You're not hiding. You're letting me protect you while I eliminate the threat. His tone softened. Please, Yvonne. Trust me. Against her better judgment, she did. The safe house was a luxury apartment in Gangnam, sterile and anonymous. 2 of Dante's men stood guard outside. Junho, who was built like a tank, and Min, whose cold eyes suggested he'd seen things that would give normal people nightmares. They were polite but intimidating, escorting her inside without conversation. Yvonne spent the first hour pacing, checking her phone obsessively. Dante had texted once. Working on it. Stay inside. I'll come to you tonight. By evening, the narrative online had shifted dramatically. Someone, obviously Dante, had released information about Yvonne's credentials, her award-winning work, her exhibitions in New York galleries, testimonials from respected clients praising her professionalism and artistry. The gossip sites that had published the most vicious attacks suddenly removed their articles, replacing them with carefully worded apologies. It was impressive. It was also terrifying, this demonstration of his reach and power. At 9 o'clock, Dante arrived. He looked exhausted, his shirt wrinkled, shadows beneath his eyes. But when he saw her, relief flooded his features. "You're safe," he breathed, pulling her into his arms. "What did you do?" Yvonne asked against his chest. "Made some calls, applied pressure in the right places. The journalists who wrote those articles about you have been informed that their careers depend on accuracy and respect going forward. You threatened them. I incentivized better behavior." He pulled back to study her face. "Are you angry?" She should have been horrified by his casual wielding of power and intimidation. Instead, she felt protected, cherished. Someone had finally fought for her the way she'd always fought for herself. "I should be," she admitted. "But I'm not. Does that make me a bad person?" "It makes you human." Dante's hands framed her face. "And it makes you mine." This time, when he kissed her, she didn't hold back. The fear and stress of the day transformed into desperate need. They made it to the bedroom, peeling away clothes between kisses, reconnecting with an urgency that felt like reclaiming territory. Dante was tender and fierce simultaneously, mapping her curves with reverent hands while whispering possessive promises in Korean. When they finally collapsed together, sweat slicked and breathless, Yvonne felt the truth settle in her bones. She was falling for him completely. Maybe had already fallen. "Stay with me," Dante murmured against her hair. "Not just tonight. Move into my penthouse. Let me keep you safe. That's moving very fast. I don't have time for slow, Yvonne. Not in my world. Every day you're apart from me is a day you're vulnerable." His arm tightened around her waist. "I need you where I can protect you." The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, it felt like coming home. "Okay," she whispered. The next morning, Dante's men moved her belongings to the penthouse. It took less than 2 hours. Everything she owned in Seoul fit into 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. The disparity between her life and his was stark. While she unpacked in his massive walk-in closet, Dante stood in the doorway, watching with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "I like seeing your things here, mixed with mine." He moved behind her, arms encircling her waist. "It feels right." "You're a romantic under all that dangerous exterior, aren't you?" "Only for you." He kissed her neck. "Everyone else gets the monster." Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Dante worked from home when possible, taking calls in his office, while Yvonne edited photos in the living room surrounded by his art collection. He was surprisingly domestic, cooking breakfast, ensuring she ate lunch, appearing with coffee exactly when she needed it. His security detail became familiar presences, Junho even cracking jokes when he thought Dante wasn't listening. But beneath the domestic bliss, tension simmered. Dante took calls at odd hours, speaking rapid Korean with an edge to his voice that made her nervous. She'd catch him staring at her sometimes, with an expression that mixed adoration and fear, as though he expected her to vanish. A week after she moved in, he came home at 3 in the morning, his knuckles bloody and his suit jacket missing. Yvonne woke to find him in the bathroom, washing blood from his hands with mechanical precision. "Whose blood?" she asked from the doorway. He didn't lie. "Men who thought hurting you would hurt me. They were right, but they won't think anything anymore." Horror and arousal warred in her chest. "You killed them." "I eliminated threats to your safety." He dried his hands, meeting her gaze in the mirror. "Does that disgust you?" It should have. But standing there in his shirt, watching this powerful, dangerous man who just committed violence to protect her, Yvonne felt something else entirely, a dark thrill that shamed and excited her simultaneously. It should, she whispered, but it doesn't. He turned, backing her against the doorframe. You understand now. This is who I am, what I'm capable of, and you're not running. No. Her hands fisted in his bloody shirt. I'm not running. They came together against the bathroom wall, urgent and raw, the violence he'd committed somehow translating into passion that left them both marked and changed. Afterward, lying in bed while he slept fitfully beside her, Yvonne confronted the truth. She was falling in love with a killer, a man who solved problems with bullets and threats. And somehow, that didn't terrify her as much as it should. Maybe she was more broken than she'd realized. Or maybe love was always a little bit dangerous. The next morning, Dante's phone rang during breakfast. He answered in Korean, his expression darkening progressively. When he hung up, he looked at her with resignation and fury. The Kwan family has issued a formal challenge. They want to meet, discuss terms. Terms for what? Territory. Power. You. His jaw clenched. They think taking you from me will weaken my position, make me emotional, reckless. Are they right? Absolutely. He moved to her, kneeling so they were eye level. You're my only weakness, Yvonne. The only thing in this world that could make me lose control. And they know it. Fear spiked through her. What do we do? I go to the meeting, show strength, remind them why I'm called the Silent King. His hands gripped hers. You stay here, surrounded by my best men. No one gets in or out without my approval. You're treating me like a prisoner. I'm treating you like the most valuable thing in my empire. His eyes blazed with intensity. Because you are. The meeting was set for that evening at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant in Gangnam that Dante's family had invested in decades ago. He dressed in a black suit that made him look like death incarnate, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. Yvonne watched him prepare, her stomach churning with anxiety. Come back to me, she said, as he prepared to leave. Dante crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. Always. I'll always come back to you. You're my home now, Yvonne. The only safe place I have left. The kiss they shared tasted like promises and fear. After he left, the penthouse felt too large and too silent. Junho and Min remained stationed outside, along with 4 other guards Dante had assigned. She tried to distract herself with editing work, but her hands shook too badly to select images properly. An hour passed. Then 2. At 10 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Her blood froze as she opened it. A photo. Dante, surrounded by men with guns. The angle suggested surveillance footage. Below it, a message in English. He can't protect you from his throne. Come alone to the address below in 30 minutes, or watch him die on camera. Tell his guards, and he dies. Bring anyone, and he dies. You're worth more alive, but he's not. An address in Gangdong followed. The industrial district, the worst possible location. Yvonne's hands trembled violently. This was a trap, obviously a trap. But the alternative, letting Dante die because she was too afraid to act, was impossible. She thought of his words. You're my only weakness. Now she'd become his death sentence. She grabbed her jacket, moving quietly toward the door. Junho glanced up from his phone as she approached. I need to get something from the car, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Personal items Dante wanted me to bring up. Junho frowned. I'll send Min. It's embarrassing. Female things. She forced an awkward smile. I'd prefer to grab them myself. He hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. Stay where I can see you. The parking garage was semi-public, accessible through the main building. Yvonne took the elevator down, her heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. Junho followed at a distance, professional but watchful. When she reached Dante's car, she made a show of leaning inside, then palmed her phone. The garage had a service exit she'd noticed during move-in. If she timed this right, she pretended to struggle with a bag, letting it spill across the ground. Junho moved to help, his attention diverted for just seconds. Yvonne ran. "Miss Mitchell!" Junho's shout echoed through the garage, but she was already through the service door, bursting into the alley behind the building. A taxi idled at the corner, too convenient to be coincidence, clearly planted there. The driver's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "Get in," he said in accented English. "Quickly." She did. Behind her, she heard Junho's voice, furious and panicked, undoubtedly calling Dante. But it was too late. The taxi peeled away into Seoul's nighttime traffic. Yvonne closed her eyes, praying she hadn't just made the worst mistake of her life. The industrial district was exactly as grim as she'd imagined. Abandoned warehouses and rusted machinery, streets empty of pedestrians. The taxi stopped in front of a building that had clearly been a factory once, now converted to something else. Lights blazed behind grimy windows. "Inside," the driver said. "Third floor." Her legs felt like water as she climbed out. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Dante's face flashed in her mind, his rare smiles, his protective fury, the way he'd looked at her like she was his salvation. She couldn't let him die. Not for her. Not because she was too afraid to act. The building's interior was surprisingly clean. Someone had renovated recently, turning industrial space into something almost elegant. She climbed stairs to the third floor, where a door stood ajar. Voices drifted through, Korean mixed with English. Yvonne pushed the door open. The room beyond was large and well lit, set up like a luxury apartment, incongruously placed in a warehouse. A dozen men in suits turned to stare at her. And in the center, seated in a leather chair like it was a throne, was a man in his 50s, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed her like merchandise. Yvonne Mitchell. His English was perfect. "Thank you for joining us. I'm Kwon Jinho. I believe you've become quite close to Dante Park." "Where is he?" she demanded, forcing strength into her voice. "You said that we'd kill him if you didn't come." A useful lie. Jinho smiled. "Dante is at a restaurant right now, negotiating with my son. A pointless conversation, but it keeps him occupied while I meet the woman who's made him weak." The room tilted. She'd walked into a trap. Dante didn't even know she was gone yet. By the time he realized, "You look disappointed," Jinho observed. "Did you imagine yourself as the hero? How American." He gestured to his men. "Take her to the holding room. Comfortable, but secure. We'll use her to draw Dante here on our terms." Rough hands grabbed her arms. Yvonne fought, landing one solid kick before they overpowered her, dragging her toward a back room. Terror clawed at her throat. She'd been so stupid, so naive. The building's front entrance exploded, not metaphorically. Actual explosion, the door blasting inward in a shower of wood and metal. Through the smoke and chaos, a figure entered like an avenging angel dressed in black. Dante. His face was a mask of cold fury that made Jinho's men step back instinctively. He held a gun in each hand, moving with lethal grace as he assessed the room. When his eyes found Yvonne, something cracked in that terrifying composure, relief and rage colliding. "Let her go," he said quietly. The words were barely audible, but they carried the weight of absolute authority. "Now." Jinho laughed nervously. "You're outnumbered, Park. 12 to 1. I've faced worse odds." Dante's gaze never left Yvonne. "And I've never been more motivated. Those men die in the next 30 seconds if they don't release her. You die in 31. You'd start a war for one woman? I'd burn down the world for her." Dante's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Test me." The men holding Yvonne exchanged glances. They'd heard the stories about the Silent King. Everyone had. He didn't bluff, didn't make threats he wouldn't follow through on. Slowly, they released her. Yvonne ran to Dante, and the moment she reached him, she felt the tremor running through his body, fury barely contained. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her behind him protectively. "You left safety," he said, without looking at her. "Junho is devastated. Min is ready to quit. And I—" His voice cracked slightly. "You terrified me, Yvonne. They said they'd kill you. So you offered yourself instead." Despite the situation, warmth bled into his tone. "Brave. Foolish. Mine. How did you find me so fast?" "Tracker in your phone. I've had it since the day we met." He glanced at her briefly. "Controlling, yes. But right now, are you complaining?" "No," she admitted. Behind them, more men poured through the destroyed entrance. Dante's security force, heavily armed and looking murderous. The numbers shifted dramatically. Junho's confidence evaporated. "This isn't over, Park," he tried weakly. "Yes, it is." Dante finally turned his full attention to the older man, and whatever Junho saw in his eyes made him go pale. "You threatened what's mine, attempted to kidnap her, traumatized her." He raised one gun, aiming with casual precision. "Give me one reason I shouldn't. End you right now." "The Triad Accord," Junho gasped. "Killing a family head without council approval starts a war." "I'm aware." Dante lowered the gun slightly. "Which is why you're going to disappear. Retire. Move to whatever country you've been hoarding money in and never return. Your son takes over the Kwan family, signs a peace treaty with me, and life continues. Or," he raised the gun again, "I paint these walls with your brain matter and deal with the consequences. Your choice." 5 seconds. Junho crumpled. "I'll go. I'll disappear." "Smart." Dante gestured to his men. "Escort Mr. Kwan to the airport. Make sure he boards his flight. If he returns to Korea, kill him." The efficiency with which Dante's forces took control was frightening. Within minutes, Junho was gone, his men disarmed and dismissed. The warehouse emptied until only Dante, Yvonne, and Junho remained. Dante finally turned to her fully, holstering his weapons. His hands rose to frame her, face, searching for injuries. "Are you hurt?" His voice shook. "Did they touch you?" "I'm fine. Scared, but fine." "Yvonne." He rested his forehead against hers. "When Junho called, when I realized you'd run toward danger to save me, my heart stopped. I've survived assassination attempts, gang wars, hostile takeovers. But the thought of losing you broke something in me that can't be repaired." "I'm sorry," she whispered. I couldn't let them hurt you." "So you offered yourself as a sacrifice." His laugh was strained. "You're either the bravest or most reckless woman I've ever met. Can't I be both?" He kissed her then, hard and desperate, pouring terror and relief and possession into the contact. When they finally broke apart, he kept her close, as though afraid she'd vanish. "We're going home," he said. "And then we're going to have a very long conversation about trust and safety and never ever doing something like this again." "Are you going to lecture me?" "I'm going to keep you in bed for 3 days until you understand viscerally how much you mean to me." His eyes darkened with promise and threat. "And then yes, we'll discuss boundaries. Despite everything, the fear, the violence, the near disaster." Yvonne felt herself flush with anticipation. Junho drove them back to the penthouse, maintaining professional silence despite the tension radiating from Dante. Once inside, Dante finally released her, running his hands through his hair in agitation. "I need you to understand something," he said, turning to face her. "This life I lead, it's brutal, merciless. My enemies will always look for weaknesses. And you, Yvonne, are my greatest weakness and my greatest strength simultaneously. I know. No, you don't. Not fully. He crossed to her, intensity blazing in his eyes. I've done terrible things. We'll do more. I've killed men who threatened my empire. I've destroyed families who challenged me. I'm not a good man. But with you, his voice softened. With you, I want to be. You make me feel human again. Yvonne reached up, touching his face. You are human. Complicated and dangerous, but human. Then understand this. I can't lose you. Won't survive it. So I need you to promise me. No more heroics. No more running toward danger. You stay where I can protect you. The possessiveness should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being valued beyond measure. I promise, she said. As long as you promise the same. No unnecessary risks. Come home to me. Always. He lifted her easily, carrying her toward the bedroom. Now, let me remind you exactly who you belong to. What followed was consuming and reverent. Dante taking his time to worship every inch of her body, while murmuring promises in English and Korean. They made love with desperate intensity, reaffirming their connection, proving they were both alive and together. Later, wrapped in sheets that smelled like him, Yvonne felt the truth settle in her bones. This man owned her completely. Heart, body, soul, and she owned him just as thoroughly. Marry me, Dante said suddenly into the darkness. Yvonne saw his breath caught. What? He propped himself on one elbow, looking down at her with absolute seriousness. Marry me. Be my wife. Let me protect you legally, publicly, permanently. Dante, we've only known each other 3 weeks. I don't care. His hand splayed possessively across her stomach. I've never been more certain of anything. You're mine. I'm yours. The rest is just paperwork. That's insane. Yes, he smiled slightly. But you love me anyway, don't you? She did. Despite the danger, the violence, the intensity that should have sent her running, she loved him completely. Yes, she whispered. I love you. Then marry me. He kissed her softly. Give me the right to call you mine in every possible way. Yvonne knew she should say no, should insist on more time, more certainty, more normalcy. But nothing about them had ever been normal. Ask me again in the morning, she said finally, when we're both thinking clearly. I'll ask you every morning until you say yes. He did. For 3 days, Dante proposed in various ways. Over breakfast, in the shower, while she edited photos. Always with that intense sincerity that made her heart clench. On the 4th morning, she woke to find him kneeling beside the bed, holding a ring box. Inside was a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect. Yvonne Mitchell, he said formally. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my home? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, providing for you, loving you with everything I have? She looked at this dangerous, complicated, impossibly devoted man and knew her answer. Yes. The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did. Dante had probably measured her finger while she slept, just like he'd installed trackers in her phone and memorized her coffee order. His possessiveness should have been suffocating, but Yvonne found it strangely comforting. For the first time in her life, someone paid attention to every detail about her. We marry quickly, Dante said, sliding the ring onto her finger with reverent care. This weekend, small ceremony. Just us and witnesses. That's 4 days away. I'm not waiting months to make you legally mine. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. Every day you're not my wife is a day my enemies can exploit loopholes, question your status, use legal channels to separate us. As my fiancé, you have some protection. As my wife, his eyes blazed. You become untouchable. There was logic in his urgency, even if it was wrapped in possessive intensity. In Dante's world, vulnerability could be fatal. Marriage wasn't just romantic, it was strategic armor. Okay, Yvonne agreed. This weekend. But I want my family there. Via video call at least. My mom deserves to see me get married. Something soft crossed his face. Of course, whatever you need. That afternoon, while Dante handled what he vaguely described as business matters, Yvonne video called her mother in California. The conversation went about as well as expected. "You're marrying a man you've known for 3 weeks." Her mother's face filled the screen, equal parts concerned and exasperated. "Yvonne, sweetheart, this isn't like you. You're usually so careful." "I know, Mom. I know it sounds crazy." Yvonne twisted the engagement ring on her finger. "But he's everything. And I love him." "Does he love you? Really love you? Not just—" Her mother hesitated delicately. "Not just the idea of you?" "He loves me." Yvonne felt the certainty in her bones. "He'd burn down the world for me. Actually offered to once." Her mother's eyebrows rose. "That's either incredibly romantic or deeply concerning." "Both," Yvonne admitted with a slight smile. "Definitely both. But Mom, I've never felt this way about anyone. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like I've found my home." The worry in her mother's expression softened. "Then I'm happy for you, baby. Send me the details. I'll be on that video call even if I have to learn how to use technology properly." After they disconnected, Yvonne sat staring at the ring, letting reality sink in. In 4 days, she'd be married to a Mafia boss in Seoul. Her life had become something out of a romance novel, except the danger was real and the consequences permanent. Second thoughts. She turned to find Dante leaning against the doorframe, watching her with that intense focus he reserved only for her. No second thoughts, just processing. She stood, moving to him. "This is really happening." "It is." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Having regrets? Never." She tilted her face up for a kiss. "Though I should probably tell you something. About me. About why I came to Seoul." His expression grew serious. "Tell me." They moved to the couch, and Yvonne took a steadying breath. She'd been avoiding this conversation, but he deserved the truth before they married. "I came to Seoul running from something," she began. "Back in New York, I was engaged. His name was Marcus. We'd been together 3 years, and I thought—" She laughed bitterly. "I thought he was my future. Then I came home early from a shoot one day and found him in our bed with my best friend." Dante's hand tightened on hers, but he remained silent, letting her continue. "The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was what he said after. That I was too much, too opinionated, too focused on my career, too comfortable in my body when I should have been trying to lose weight. He made me feel like I was fundamentally unlovable unless I changed everything about myself." "He was an idiot," Dante said flatly. "Maybe, but it broke something in me, made me doubt myself. So I took a job in Seoul because I needed distance. A fresh start where no one knew me as the woman who wasn't enough." She met Dante's gaze. "And then I met you. And you look at me like I'm a masterpiece. Like my curves are something to worship instead of hide. Like my strength makes you want me more, not less." Dante cupped her face in both hands. "You are a masterpiece. Every inch of you. And any man who made you feel less than extraordinary deserves to suffer. He's not worth your anger. Perhaps not. But if I ever meet him, he'll learn exactly what happens to people who hurt you." The cold promise in his voice made her shiver. "You're mine now, Yvonne. No one will ever make you feel inadequate again. I'll spend every day proving your worth until you see yourself the way I see you, as a goddess who inexplicably chose to love a monster." "You're not a monster," I am. He kissed her forehead. But I'm your monster. And that makes all the difference. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Dante handled everything with ruthless efficiency, securing a private venue, arranging catering, hiring an officiant who spoke both English and Korean. He bought her a wedding dress without her input, somehow procuring a designer gown that fit perfectly and matched her aesthetic exactly. When she asked how he'd known her size and style preferences, he just smiled mysteriously. "I pay attention," was all he'd say. On the morning of the wedding, Yvonne woke alone. A note on Dante's pillow read, "Traditional for groom not to see bride before ceremony. Humor me. Car will collect you at 4. Wear the dress. Be ready to become mine forever." The dress was stunning, ivory silk that hugged her curves before flowing into a modest train, with delicate beading across the bodice that caught the light. It made her look like a goddess, powerful and feminine simultaneously. She styled her hair in loose waves, applied minimal makeup, and slipped on the heels Dante had provided. At 4 exactly, Junho knocked on the bedroom door. "Mrs. Park," he said, then caught himself. "Sorry, almost Mrs. Park. The car is ready." She smiled at his obvious discomfort. Over the past weeks, Dante's security team had warmed to her, especially after she'd learned their names and asked about their families. Junho had 3 daughters. Min had a wife who baked elaborate cakes. They weren't just bodyguards anymore. They were becoming something like friends. The venue was a traditional Korean hanok house that had been renovated into a luxury event space nestled in the hills overlooking Seoul. As the car wound up the private road, Yvonne's nerves intensified. This was really happening. In less than an hour, she'd be married. The ceremony space was intimate, a courtyard under the open sky, decorated with white, flowers, and silk, draping. Chairs for maybe 20 people. Her laptop was set up on a stand, already connected to her mother's video call. A handful of Dante's most trusted associates stood along the sides, men in dark suits, who nodded respectfully as she passed. And at the front, standing beneath a floral arch, was Dante. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that made him look like sin incarnate. His hair was styled back from his face, revealing the sharp angles of his features. But it was his expression when he saw her that made her breath catch, pure, undiluted awe, as though he couldn't quite believe she was real. Yvonne walked toward him without music or fanfare, just her heels clicking against stone and her heart hammering against her ribs. When she reached him, he took her hands, and she felt the slight tremor running through his fingers. "You're nervous," she whispered. "Terrified," he admitted quietly. "That I'll wake up, and this will have been a dream. That you'll realize what you're signing up for and run." "I'm not running." She squeezed his hands. "I'm exactly where I want to be." The officiant began speaking in Korean, then repeated in English for Yvonne's benefit. Traditional vows mixed with modern promises. Dante's responses were steady, his eyes never leaving hers. When it came time for her vows, Yvonne spoke from the heart. "I, Yvonne Mitchell, take you, Dante Park, as my husband, my partner, my home. I promise to stand beside you through danger and peace, to love you in darkness and light, to be your strength when you falter and your comfort when you hurt. I choose you, today and every day, after." Dante's composure cracked slightly, emotion flickering across his face. When he spoke his own vows, his voice was rough with feeling. "I, Dante Park, take you, Yvonne Mitchell, as my wife, my heart, my reason for existing. I promise to protect you with my life, to provide for you without question, to love you without reservation. You've made me human again, given me hope I thought I'd lost. I am yours completely, irrevocably, eternally. The rings were simple platinum bands. When Dante slid hers on, his thumb lingered on her pulse point, feeling her heartbeat. The officiant pronounced them married in both languages. "You may kiss your bride." Dante pulled her close, and the kiss was tender and possessive simultaneously, sealing their union before witnesses and heaven. Applause erupted from their small audience. On the laptop screen, Yvonne's mother was crying and beaming simultaneously. "My wife," Dante murmured against her lips. "Finally, irrevocably, mine." The reception was small and elegant, held in the Hanok's interior room. Dinner was traditional Korean cuisine mixed with Western dishes. Dante kept Yvonne close the entire evening, his hand on her waist or thigh, as though afraid she'd disappear if he stopped touching her. During dessert, one of his associates, a Dubaino man named Chen who handled international shipments, raised his glass. "To Dante and Yvonne, may your union be blessed with happiness, prosperity, and many children." The toast was traditional, but something in the way Dante's hand tightened possessively on her waist made heat pool in Yvonne's core. Children. Family. A future beyond danger and violence. After the reception ended and guests departed, Dante swept her into his arms, carrying her toward the car despite her laughing protests. "It's tradition," he insisted. "Groom carries bride over the threshold." "We're not at a threshold. We're in a parking lot." "Details." He kissed her thoroughly. "Humor me." The drive back to the penthouse felt endless, charged with anticipation. Dante's hand rested high on her thigh, his thumb drawing maddening circles that made her squirm. When they finally arrived, he carried her through the actual threshold, kicking the door closed behind them. "Alone at last," he murmured, setting her down carefully. "My wife. Mrs. Park? Say it." "I'm Mrs. Park." The name felt foreign and right simultaneously. "Your wife." Something primal flashed in his eyes. "Mine." He proved it thoroughly that night, worshipping her body with reverent intensity, whispering Korean endearments she didn't understand, but felt in her soul. They came together desperately, sealing their marriage in the most intimate way possible, reconnecting again and again until exhaustion finally claimed them. Yvonne woke the next morning wrapped in expensive sheets and her husband's arms. The word felt surreal. Husband. She was married to a Mafia boss in Seoul. "Stop overthinking," Dante mumbled against her hair. "I can feel your brain working. I'm married to you. I'm allowed to overthink." He rolled, pinning her beneath him with a playful growl. "You're allowed to relax and enjoy being cherished by your devoted husband." Devoted and possessive. Inseparable concepts where you're concerned. He kissed her slowly. "I love you, Mrs. Park." "I love you too." She traced the line of his jaw. "What happens now?" "Now?" He considered. "We have breakfast. I show you the prenuptial agreement I never asked you to sign, proving I'm not after your theoretical fortune. We discuss honeymoon destinations. And then," his expression grew serious, "we handle the remaining Kwan family situation." Her stomach dropped. "I thought Jinho left the country." "He did. But his son, Kwan Minho, is still consolidating power. He's made overtures about peace, but I don't trust him yet." Dante rolled off her, sitting on the edge of the bed. "There's a meeting tomorrow. The major families gathering to discuss territory and treaties. I need to attend." "And me?" "You stay here, where it's safe." Yvonne sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. "Dante, we just got married. I'm part of your life now. That includes the dangerous parts." "Absolutely not." His voice hardened. "You're my wife, which makes you an even bigger target. I won't risk. I'm not asking permission." She moved to kneel beside him. I'm telling you, we're partners now. That means facing things together. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Dante closed his eyes in resignation. You're going to be the death of me, he muttered, or your salvation. She kissed his shoulder. Trust me. The meeting location was neutral territory, a private club in Gangnam that catered to Seoul's elite criminals. Dante dressed her in an elegant black dress that screamed wealth and sophistication, then spent 20 minutes going over safety protocols. You stay beside me at all times. If shooting starts, you drop to the ground. If I tell you to run, you run. Junho and Min will extract you. Dante. Yvonne cupped his face. Breathe. I'll be careful. You're the most valuable thing in my world. Careful isn't enough. The club was opulent. Velvet furniture, crystal chandeliers, expensive art on every wall. Men in tailored suits occupied the main room, clustered in groups that suggested old alliances and simmering rivalries. Conversation stopped when Dante entered, Yvonne on his arm. She felt their stares, assessing and calculating. The infamous Silent King had brought his new wife. It was a statement. Vulnerability and strength simultaneously. He was showing them what he valued most while daring anyone to threaten it. Kwon Minho approached immediately. He was younger than Yvonne expected, maybe 30, with sharp features and calculating eyes. He bowed slightly to Dante, then to her. Park, Dante, congratulations on your marriage. His English was accented but clear. Your wife is very beautiful. Thank you. Dante's hand tightened possessively on Yvonne's waist. Shall we discuss business? They moved to a private room where the major family's representatives had gathered. 8 men total, including Dante and Minho. Yvonne was the only woman present. She sat silently beside Dante, observing dynamics and power structures. The conversation was mostly in Korean, but she caught enough to understand the basics. Territory disputes, profit-sharing agreements, rules about civilian casualties, and police interference. It was organized crime functioning like corporate negotiations. Then Minho said something that made Dante's entire body tense. The temperature in the room dropped. Repeat that, Dante said softly in English, presumably for Yvonne's benefit. So everyone understands what you're proposing. Minho smiled coldly. I said, your wife is beautiful and valuable, perhaps worth more than territory. I propose a trade, my family's interests in Itaewon, in exchange for one night with Mrs. Park. Silence crashed through the room. Yvonne's blood ran cold. Several of the other men shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the line Minho had just crossed. Dante stood slowly, his movements controlled and predatory. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, the most dangerous sound Yvonne had ever heard. You just made the worst mistake of your life. It's business, Minho began. No. Dante moved around the table with lethal grace. It's suicide. You disrespected my wife, suggested she's property to be traded in front of witnesses. He stopped inches from Minho. I'm going to give you one chance. One. Apologize to her. Sincerely. Or I paint these walls with your brain matter and let the Kwon family choose a smarter leader. Minho's bravado cracked. He looked at the other men, seeking support, but found only cold neutrality. He'd violated an unspoken rule. You could threaten a man's business, his territory, even his life. But his wife was sacred. Minho swallowed hard. I apologize, Mrs. Park. My words were inappropriate and disrespectful. Not good enough. Dante's hand moved to his jacket, where Yvonne knew he kept a gun. Try again, with sincerity. I apologize sincerely. Minho's voice shook now. I meant no true disrespect. It was a poor attempt at negotiation. Dante looked at Yvonne. Acceptable? Every man in the room was watching her, waiting for her judgment. Yvonne understood the power dynamic. Dante was letting her decide Minho's fate. It was a demonstration of respect and partnership. Acceptable, she said quietly. This time. The threat was implicit. There wouldn't be a second chance. Dante stepped back, returning to his seat beside her. His hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. The rest of the meeting proceeded with heightened tension, everyone carefully avoiding further incidents. Afterward, in the car, Dante pulled her into his lap despite Junho driving. "You handled that perfectly," he said against her hair. Cool. Authoritative. Every man in that room now understands, you're not just my wife. You're my equal. My partner. Was that a test? No. But it became an opportunity. He tilted her face up to his. Minho's insult was real. My rage was real. But your response, giving him mercy while making the threat clear, that was political genius. You just earned respect from families that would have dismissed you as ornamental. Yvonne's hands fisted in his shirt. He suggested trading me like property. I wanted to spit in his face. I know. But you chose strategy over emotion. That's why you're perfect for this life. He kissed her fiercely. My brilliant, beautiful wife. That night, their lovemaking was charged with leftover adrenaline and possessive need. Dante marked her skin with kisses and gentle bites, reclaiming every inch of her after Minho's insult. Afterward, holding her close, he whispered the truth they both felt. I can't lose you. The thought of anyone touching you, hurting you, it makes me capable of things that would horrify you. I know. She traced patterns on his chest. But you won't lose me. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me. I promise. You're stuck with me, Dante Park, for better or worse. Definitely worse, he said with dark humor, given my profession. Over the following weeks, they settled into married life. Yvonne continued her photography work, now with the added prestige of being Dante Park's wife. Clients who'd ignored her before suddenly wanted her for prestigious events. She accepted some jobs, declined others, learning to navigate Seoul's elite social circles. Dante was attentive and possessive, calling her multiple times daily when business kept him away, sending gifts for no reason, appearing at her shoots just to steal kisses. His security detail became her constant shadows, protective but no longer oppressive. She learned more about his world, the legitimate businesses that funded the empire, the careful balance between criminal enterprise and corporate respectability, the full codes and hierarchies that kept violence from spiraling into chaos. It was darker than she'd imagined, but also more structured, almost bureaucratic in its organization. 1 month after their wedding, Yvonne woke feeling nauseous. She dismissed it as bad food until it happened 3 mornings in a row. The realization hit her like lightning. She took the test in secret, waiting until Dante left for a meeting. The 2 lines appeared almost immediately. Pregnant. Terror and joy collided in her chest. A baby, Dante's baby, growing inside her right now. They'd only been married a month, together less than 3 months total. This was too fast, too soon, too... What's wrong? She spun to find Dante in the bathroom doorway, his meeting apparently canceled. His gaze dropped to the test in her hand. She watched him process what he was seeing, the plastic stick, her terrified expression, the implications. Yvonne, his voice was hoarse. Are you pregnant? Yes, she set the test down with shaking hands. I know it's too soon. We haven't even discussed if you want children, and I understand if this changes things. He crossed the bathroom in 2 strides, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. When he set her down, His eyes were bright with unshed tears. Changes things. He laughed, the sound raw with emotion. Yvonne, you're carrying my child. Our child. You've given me everything I never knew I wanted. Love, partnership, hope, and now this. His hand settled gently on her still flat stomach. You've given me a family. You're happy. Relief flooded through her. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed her with devastating tenderness. Terrified, yes. Already obsessively protective, absolutely. But happy? Yvonne, you've made me the happiest man alive. They spent the rest of the morning talking about the future. Doctor appointments, nursery designs, names they liked, how to keep the pregnancy secret until it was safe to announce. Dante was already mentally restructuring his security protocols, making plans to eliminate any possible threats before the baby arrived. We need to be more careful now, he said seriously. You and the baby. You're both precious, irreplaceable. We will be. She took his hand, placing it back on her stomach. We're in this together. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. 2 weeks later, everything went to hell. The attack came on a Tuesday afternoon, when Seoul was drowning in autumn rain. Yvonne had been at a photography studio in Hongdae, documenting an art installation for a gallery client. Junho and Min flanked her as always, professional and vigilant. She'd almost finished the shoot when her phone rang. Dante's name flashed on the screen. Hey, she answered, smiling. Almost done here. Should be home in an... Get out! His voice was sharp with urgency. Right now. Junho knows the extraction point. Go. Her blood turned to ice. What's happening? The Russians. They've allied with what's left of the Kwan family. There's a coordinated attack happening across the city. My warehouses, my clubs, my associates. His voice cracked slightly. They know about the baby, Yvonne. Someone leaked it. You're the primary target. The world tilted. How do they? Doesn't matter. Move. Now. I'm sending everyone I have to protect you, but you need to get to the safe house. Background noise erupted on his end, shouting, what sounded like gunfire. I'd love you. Keep our baby safe. The call disconnected. Junho was already moving, his hand on her elbow, pulling her toward the back exit. Min spoke rapidly into his radio in Korean, coordinating with other security teams. The studio's other occupants looked confused and alarmed as the three of them rushed past. They made it to the parking garage before the first attackers appeared. 4 men in dark clothing, moving with military precision. Junho shoved Yvonne behind a concrete pillar, drawing his weapon. Min fired first, the gunshot deafening in the enclosed space. Yvonne pressed herself against the pillar, arms wrapped protectively around her stomach, terror clawing at her throat. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when she was carrying Dante's child. The firefight lasted less than a minute, but felt eternal. When silence fell, Junho grabbed her arm again, pulling her toward a different vehicle, an unmarked sedan instead of Dante's usual Mercedes. In. Now. She climbed into the back seat. Min took the driver's position, peeling out of the garage with squealing tires. Junho twisted in the front passenger seat, weapon still drawn, scanning for threats. Where are we going? Yvonne managed through her panic. Safe house in Gangbuk, Northern District. Boss's secondary location. Junho's voice was steady, despite the blood seeping through his left sleeve. We'll be safe there until he can secure the city. You're hurt. I'm fine, just a graze. He met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Mrs. Park, I need you to stay calm. For the baby. Boss would never forgive me if something happened to either of you. She nodded, forcing herself to breathe steadily. Panic wouldn't help. She needed to be strong. For Dante. For their child. The drive took 40 minutes, winding through Seoul's northern neighborhoods until they reached a residential building that looked completely ordinary. Min pulled into an underground garage, using a keycard to access a private elevator. They ascended to the top floor. The safe house was smaller than the penthouse, but just as secure. Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, enough supplies to last weeks if necessary. Junho did a full sweep while Min checked the security feeds, showing multiple camera angles of the building's exterior. "We're secure," Min announced. "For now." Yvonne sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. "What about Dante? Is he—" "Boss is the most dangerous man in Seoul," Junho said, returning from the bedroom sweep. "He'll handle this. Your job is to stay safe and trust him." Hours crawled past. Yvonne tried calling Dante repeatedly, but her calls went to voicemail. She monitored news feeds on her phone, seeing reports of fires and gang violence across the city. The police presence had increased dramatically. Whatever was happening, it was big enough that even the authorities couldn't ignore it. Night fell. Still no word from Dante. At midnight, her phone finally rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Her voice shook. "Mrs. Park." The voice was accented. Russian, perhaps. "Your husband has caused us considerable trouble. We'd like to negotiate a settlement." Ice flooded her veins. "I'm not negotiating anything with you." "You will if you want to see him alive again." Background noise. Someone groaning in pain. Dante. She'd know his voice anywhere, even in agony. "We have him. Alive, but not for long. You have 1 hour to come to the address I'm sending. Alone. Or we send him back to you in pieces." "Don't," she started, but the call ended. A text arrived immediately with an address in Itaewon, the industrial district again. Junho appeared at her shoulder, having heard the entire conversation. "You're not going." "They have Dante." Her voice broke. "They'll kill him. It's a trap. They want you both." His expression was pained but firm. "Boss would rather die than let them take you and the baby." "Then I'll have to live with that forever? Knowing I could have saved him?" Tears burned her eyes. "I can't, Junho. I can't lose him." "Mrs. Park, that's an order." She straightened, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed. "I'm going. You can either help me or get out of my way." Junho and Min exchanged looks. Finally, Junho nodded reluctantly. "We go together. Full tactical approach. And if Boss survives this, he's going to kill me." They planned carefully. Yvonne would enter the building as requested, but Junho and Min would position themselves outside with sniper rifles, and backup called from Dante's remaining security forces. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all they had. The drive to Itaewon felt surreal, like moving through a nightmare. The address led to an abandoned factory, exactly the kind of place where bad things happened in movies. Yvonne's hands rested protectively on her stomach as they approached. "Remember," Min said quietly, "keep them talking. Give us time to get into position. And if shooting starts, hit the ground." She nodded, not trusting her voice. The factory's main entrance stood open, spilling sickly yellow light into the darkness. Yvonne walked through it alone, every instinct screaming at her to run. The interior was cavernous and mostly empty, just rusted machinery and concrete floors. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Dante. Her heart seized. He was bloodied and bruised, one eye swollen shut, his expensive shirt torn and stained, but alive. When he saw her, rage and terror warred across his battered face. "No," he rasped. "Yvonne, no, you shouldn't have." Touching reunion. A man stepped from the shadows, tall, muscular, with cold blue eyes and a Russian accent. "Mrs. Park, thank you for being so predictable." "Let him go." She forced strength into her voice. "That was the deal. I came alone." "Did you?" The Russian smiled. "I doubt that. But it doesn't matter. We have what we wanted. leverage over the silent king. He moved behind Dante, pressing a gun to his head. You see, your husband has been very troublesome. He's disrupted our operations, killed our associates, refused reasonable business arrangements. We can't let that stand. So this is about business? Yvonne's mind raced, trying to buy time. What do you want? Money? Territory? We want Sol. The Russian smile widened. And the easiest way to take it is to eliminate its current king and demoralize his organization, starting with his pregnant wife. Dante struggled against his restraints, fury radiating from him despite his injuries. Touch her, and You'll what? You're tied to a chair, Park. Beaten. Finished. The Russian turned his attention back to Yvonne. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to kill you in front of him. Let him watch you die, knowing he failed to protect you and his unborn child. Then I'll kill him. His empire will crumble without leadership, and we'll move into the vacuum. Very dramatic, Yvonne said, surprising herself with her steady tone. But you're forgetting something. What's that? You're not the only one who came prepared. The factory's skylights shattered simultaneously. Junho and Min descended on ropes, weapons firing. The Russian dove for cover, but not fast enough. Min's bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. More of Dante's security forces poured through doors and windows, transforming the factory into a war zone. Yvonne hit the ground as instructed, crawling toward Dante. Bullets whined overhead. Men shouted in Korean and Russian. Glass and concrete chips rained down from impacts. She reached Dante's chair, her fingers fumbling with the ropes binding his wrists. You brilliant, reckless, impossible woman, he breathed, his good eye fixed on her with desperate intensity. I told you to stay safe. And I told you we're partners. The ropes finally gave way. Can you stand? Yes. He lurched to his feet, immediately positioning himself between her and the chaos. We need to move, now. They ran in a crouch toward the exit, Dante shielding her body with his despite his injuries. Junho materialized beside them, providing covering fire. They burst into the night air, rain soaking them immediately. A vehicle screeched up, one of Dante's reinforcement teams. They climbed in, Dante pulling Yvonne onto his lap, his arms locking around her protectively. Hospital, Junho ordered the driver. Both of them need medical attention. No hospital. Dante's voice was rough but firm. Too exposed. Get us to the Gangbuk safe house. I have a doctor on call. The drive was tense, everyone scanning for pursuit. Yvonne pressed her face into Dante's chest, feeling his heartbeat, rapid but steady. Alive. They were both alive. At the safe house, Dante's private physician was already waiting, a woman named Dr. Kim, who asked no questions and worked efficiently. She examined Dante first, declaring his injuries painful, but not life-threatening. Bruised ribs, facial lacerations, possible concussion. Nothing that wouldn't heal. Then she turned to Yvonne, her expression softening. Let's check on the baby. Terror gripped Yvonne's chest. The stress, the fear, the physical exertion. What if she'd lost the pregnancy? What if trying to save Dante had cost them their child? Dr. Kim used a portable ultrasound machine, applying gel to Yvonne's still flat stomach. The room held its collective breath. Then, a rapid thumping filled the air, the baby's heartbeat. Strong and healthy, Dr. Kim announced with a smile. Your baby is a fighter. Just like the parents. The sound of relief that escaped Dante was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He gripped Yvonne's hand so tightly it hurt, but she didn't care. Their baby was safe. Everything else could be managed. After Dr. Kim left with instructions for rest and follow-up care, Dante and Yvonne lay together on the safe house bed, wrapped in each other's arms, despite his injuries. I'm so angry with you, he whispered. You risked yourself and our baby coming after me. I couldn't lose you, and I can't lose you. Do you understand what went through my mind when I saw you walk into that factory?" His voice cracked. "Every nightmare I've ever had realized. You in danger because of me, because loving me made you a target. Loving you makes me complete." She touched his bruised face gently. "Yes, your world is dangerous, but it's our world now. Mine and yours, and our babies. We face it together. You're too brave for your own good. I learned from the best." She kissed him carefully, avoiding his split lip. "What happens now? With the Russians?" Dante's expression hardened. "Now I remind Soul why they call me the Silent King. The Russians made a mistake tonight. They showed their hand and failed. By tomorrow morning, they'll either be dead or running. No one threatens my family and lives to speak of it." True to his word, Dante spent the next 3 days orchestrating the complete dismantling of the Russian-Quan alliance. Yvonne saw a side of him she'd only glimpsed before. Ruthless, strategic, absolutely merciless. He didn't just eliminate the threat, he erased it so thoroughly that other rivals would think twice before challenging him again. But in their private moments, he was tender and devoted, his hands constantly seeking her stomach, whispering to their unborn child in Korean. Dr. Kim visited daily, monitoring both their recoveries. Gradually, Dante's bruises faded, and Ivana's stress levels normalized. 2 weeks after the attack, Dante received confirmation that the last Russian operative had been captured and would be deported. The Quan family's remaining leadership had signed an unconditional peace treaty. Seoul was secure again. That evening, he found Yvonne in the safe house's small kitchen, attempting to cook dinner with limited success. "What are you doing?" He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his hands spreading possessively over her stomach. "Trying to make bulgogi. I thought, since we're having a baby, I should learn to cook Korean food." She gestured at the disaster on the stove. "It's not going well." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "You're perfect exactly as you are. We'll hire a cook if necessary." Very romantic. But she leaned back into his embrace. "Are we safe now? Really safe? As safe as we can be in this life." He turned her to face him. "I've consolidated power, made examples, established that you and our child are completely off limits. But Yvonne, there will always be risks, always threats. If you want out, if you want to take our baby somewhere normal and safe, stop." She pressed her fingers to his lips. "I chose this. Chose you. Chose our life together, dangers and all. I'm not leaving. Even though I'm a monster who solves problems with violence. You're my monster." She echoed his words from weeks ago. "And I love you completely. The dangerous parts, and the tender parts, and everything in between." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, before dropping to his knees in front of her. His hands cradled her small bump, his forehead resting gently against it. "I promise you," he said to their unborn child, "I'll build a world where you're safe, where you can be innocent and happy, where the darkness your father lives in never touches you." He looked up at Yvonne, his eyes bright with emotion. "Both of you. I'll give you everything." "You already have," she whispered, running her fingers through his hair. "You've given us love. That's all we need." They moved back to the penthouse the following week, returning to their life with new security measures and fresh perspective. Yvonne continued her photography work, now with added caution and protection. Dante became even more ruthlessly efficient in his business dealings, eliminating threats quickly so he could spend more time at home. As her pregnancy progressed, he became hilariously overprotective. He banned certain foods, insisted she rest constantly, and personally interviewed every doctor, midwife, and nurse who would be involved in the delivery. His security team was under strict orders to report her every movement, mood change, and craving. "You're being ridiculous," she told him when he tried to forbid her from climbing stairs. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass." "You're carrying the most precious thing in my world." He lifted her easily, carrying her up the stairs despite her protests. "I'm allowed to be overprotective." "This is beyond overprotective. This is love." He set her down gently in their bedroom. "This is what love looks like when you're a possessive criminal who's terrified of losing his family." She softened, cupping his face. "You're not going to lose us. Promise me." "I promise." "We're yours, Dante Park, for better or worse, in danger and safety, forever." The months passed in a blur of doctor appointments, nursery preparation, and quiet domestic moments that felt stolen from another life. Dante painted the nursery himself, a soft green that would work for either gender since they'd decided not to find out. He assembled furniture with surprising competence, cursing in Korean when instructions proved confusing. Yvonne documented everything with her camera, creating a visual story of their journey to parenthood. The photos showed a side of Dante the world never saw. Tender, playful, completely devoted. In her favorite image, he was asleep on the nursery floor, surrounded by instruction manuals and partially assembled crib parts, exhausted but content. This was real. This life they'd built from danger and obsession and impossible love. On a spring morning, 8 months into her pregnancy, Yvonne woke to sharp pain radiating through her abdomen. Dante was awake immediately, his protective instincts sensing something wrong. "What is it? The baby?" "I think..." Another contraction stole her breath. "I think it's time." The next hours were chaos. Dante drove them to the private hospital where they'd arranged for delivery, breaking multiple traffic laws and terrifying other drivers. Dr. Kim met them at the entrance with a wheelchair and a team of nurses. Dante refused to leave Yvonne's side, even when medical staff suggested he wait outside. "I'm staying," he said in a tone that brooked no argument. "This is my wife and my child. I'm not missing a moment." Labor was long and difficult. 20 hours of contractions, breathing exercises, Dante holding her hand and whispering encouragement in English and Korean. When she screamed in pain, he looked murderous, as though he could intimidate her suffering into submission. Finally, as dawn broke over Seoul, their daughter entered the world. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled and screaming indignantly at being evicted from her comfortable womb. The nurse placed her on Yvonne's chest, and time seemed to stop. This small, impossible miracle, this combination of Dante's strength and Ivana's spirit, their child. Dante stared at his daughter with an expression of absolute wonder, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. When the nurse offered to let him hold her, his hands trembled as he accepted the tiny bundle. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice broken with emotion. "Yvonne, she's perfect. We made this beautiful, perfect person." "What should we name her?" Yvonne asked, exhausted but radiantly happy. Dante studied their daughter's face, committing every feature to memory. "Sophie. Sophie Park. It means wisdom. She'll need wisdom to navigate having me as a father." "Sophie." Yvonne smiled. "It's perfect. She's perfect." Over the next days, Dante proved himself as devoted a father as he was a husband. He changed diapers, paced the hospital room, soothing Sophie when she cried, and stood guard over both his girls like a warrior defending his kingdom. His security team was banned from the hospital floor. This time was for family only. When they finally brought Sophie home, Dante carried her as though she was made of spun glass. The penthouse had been transformed, the nursery fully equipped, every possible baby item purchased, and enough flowers to fill a botanical garden sent by Dante's associates, congratulating them. That first night home, Yvonne woke to find Dante's side of the bed empty. She found him in the nursery, standing over Sophie's crib, watching their daughter sleep with an expression of fierce protectiveness. "She's breathing fine," Yvonne said softly from the doorway. "You don't have to watch her every second." "I know." He didn't look away from Sophie. "But I want to. I want to memorize every moment, every breath, every expression." Finally, he turned to Yvonne. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me this. For being brave enough to love a man like me. For carrying our child and surviving the danger I brought into your life. For making me believe in hope again." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms carefully, mindful of her post-pregnancy body. "You've given me everything, Yvonne. A reason to be better, a family to protect, a future worth fighting for." "We gave each other everything," she corrected, tilting her face up for a kiss. "We're a team. Always have been." Sophie stirred in her crib, making the small noises newborns make. They both moved to her simultaneously, Dante lifting her gently, while Yvonne stroked her impossibly soft hair. Their daughter opened dark eyes, Dante's eyes, and seemed to study them both with infant intensity. "Welcome to the world, Sophie Park," Dante murmured. "Your mother is a goddess and a warrior. Your father is a criminal with a heart your mother somehow found beneath all the darkness. Together, we're your family, and we will love you with everything we have. Always." Months flowed into years. Sophie grew into a beautiful, bright-eyed toddler who had her father wrapped completely around her tiny finger. Dante, the silent king who terrified Soul's underworld, became utterly helpless in the face of his daughter's giggles and demands for Appa to play. Yvonne's photography career flourished, now specializing in fine art and gallery exhibitions that earned international recognition. She documented their family's life in images that captured love in its most honest form. Dante teaching Sophie to walk, all three of them covered in flour from a baking disaster. Quiet moments of domestic bliss stolen from the darkness outside their walls. The threats never completely disappeared. There were still rivals, still dangers, still moments when Dante had to remind Soul of his power. But he'd learned to balance both worlds, the ruthless kingpin and the devoted family man. And Yvonne stood beside him through it all, his partner in both light and shadow. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Dante surprised her with a private gallery showing. Every photograph she'd taken of their life together, professionally framed and displayed. The final image showed the three of them on their penthouse balcony at sunset, Sophie between them, all of their faces lit with joy. "This is us," Dante said, wrapping his arms around Yvonne from behind as they studied the photograph. "This is what you gave me. Not just love or family, but the ability to see beauty in a life I thought could only contain darkness." "You were always capable of beauty," Yvonne replied, leaning into his warmth. "You just needed someone to see it." Sophie tugged on Dante's pants leg, demanding to be lifted. He scooped her up instantly, balancing her on his hip while keeping one arm around Yvonne. "My whole world," he murmured, looking between his wife and daughter. "Right here. Everything that matters." Later that night, after Sophie was asleep and they lay tangled together in bed, Dante made a confession. "Sometimes I'm terrified I'll wake up and this will have been a dream. That I'll still be the man I was before you. Empty, violent, alone. That I'll never have met you in that gallery, never found this happiness. This is real," Yvonne assured him, lacing her fingers with his. "We're real. Our family, our love, our life, all of it is real. You're not that empty man anymore, Dante. You're a husband, a father. My partner. My home. And you're mine. He rolled to face her, his expression intense in the moonlight filtering through the windows. My heart. My salvation. My reason for everything. Very romantic for a mafia boss. Only for you. He kissed her slowly, deeply, reminding them both of the fire that had brought them together. Always only for you.